Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're joining us today. We're in the sanctuary at First Presbyterian Church in Natchez. Today, I want to go into the rich book of Genesis. Genesis just seems to keep giving stories. You think you've read them all and you know them all, but every time you go back into Genesis, you find something new and different. This morning, for a written devotion that came out as my daily devotion today, I had chosen a few words about Noah to work into some ideas that I wanted to offer. And I hadn't really thought about it, but here I am the same day recording for tomorrow. This will air on, the first airing will be the 15th of July. We're taping on the afternoon of the 14th, or I'm sorry, taping's not the right word. We're videoing on the afternoon of the 14th. So from Genesis, I've chosen the story of Jacob as he is running as fast as he can out of the promised land. I had never really thought about how quickly he was leaving the place his grandfather had so obediently come in as hastily as he could after God gave him that instruction to do so. So this morning, or this afternoon, we're reading from Genesis 28. We'll read verses 10 to 22 if you'd like to follow along. Hear the word of the Lord for us today. Genesis 28, 10 to 22. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching into heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I've done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I surely give 1/10 to you. This is the word of the Lord for us today. Well, Jacob, if you remember the story, as he was fleeing out of the promised land, was running from the wrath of his brother, Esau. Jacob has recently deceived both his brother and his father, Isaac. And now he is the owner of both the birthright and the blessing of the family. Jacob did not expect to have an experience of God in the place he stopped the first night on the run from his home, but that is what happened. Jacob is not sure he will ever see his homeland again. He is afraid and alone. He does not know that his grandfather Abraham had stopped in this same place many years before, but it is true, he did. We read that in the 12th chapter of Genesis. It is God who is in charge of this day and this night. God ever is in charge. It is God who has made these plans, as God always has plans. God's plans for Jacob include God's meeting him, surprising Jacob, reassuring Jacob, and appointing Jacob to be the one who will lead the family into the future. All of this seems so unlikely, but God is at work in his usual surprising ways. Abraham had stopped at this place on his way into the promised land, Bethel. Jacob stops at this place on the way out of the land that was promised to his ancestors. Jacob sleeps, his head on a stone for a pillow. God appears to him in a dream, and first Jacob sees this strange ladder going up, and angels of the Lord going up and coming down the ladder. He realizes at that time there is some connection here. The ladder all the way to heaven, all the way to earth from heaven. It is a revelation to him that comes just before we read God is standing right beside him. Earth is a place where the holy does dwell. God dwells where such divine power is found. Is God with him? Dare he think in those terms? Can Jacob imagine such a thing? In verse 13 we read, "And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and the east and the north and the south, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed in your offspring." Jacob, the deceitful brother and son, is chosen by God with the same promise given his grandfather Abraham and his offspring. God promises the same to the offspring of Jacob. Suddenly, we read, suddenly God is standing there beside him, speaking to him, reassuring him. First, God introduces himself. Did you notice that? I am the Lord. Second, God tells Jacob that Jacob will be connected to this land always. And third, God tells him that though he is fleeing this land, God will be with him, protect him wherever he goes, and God will bring him back safely. These are important words for Jacob to hear. Jacob begins to realize that God's purpose and will are being carried out in his life, and he feels the presence of God in this place. He acknowledges God's presence, and he builds an altar. He feels the holiness of the place and the moment of holiness. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. You remember that hymn probably. How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, he thought. This is the gate of heaven. Surely it was. Jacob had come into God's sanctuary. It's so often where we encounter God also. It may be the sanctuary such as this one, sanctuary in a church, or it may be a sanctuary such as the one that Jacob found out in the open. This is the gate of heaven. Jacob has used a stone for his pillow, and now he turns it on its end and makes it a monument to God, anointing the stone and promising God that he will remember everything about this place. Jacob says to God, "The Lord shall be my God. The Lord is the one that I vow to worship." Jacob promises to give 1/10 of all he receives, all he is, to God. I think we can easily find ourselves slipping into the promises of the New Testament at this place in the reading in Genesis. We can remember Matthew's story of the birth of Jesus. Remember the quote from Isaiah that is used there in chapter 1 of Matthew, foretelling the birth of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. Today we have experiences of earth and heaven, usually connected to our experience with Jesus. Jesus dwells in the heaven at the right hand of God the Father, but Jesus also dwells in our hearts, always, always with us. Jesus, like the angels, you might say, always is ascending and descending from heaven to watch over us, to send angels to guard our hearts and our very beings. In Jesus, we have the promise that as we come from the Father in heaven, to him we shall go. God will lead us out. God will bring us home. And that includes whatever journey we have to make in this life. The Lord will keep you. I want to read just a little bit from a psalm as we conclude. The word keep has always fascinated me. Maybe you've had the same feeling about it. But there is a special use of it in the Old Testament. God keeps his people. God keeps Jacob. God keeps you. God keeps me. I lift up my eyes to the hills. This is Psalm 121. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on forevermore. There's some tiny silver scroll amulets that were found in a tomb in Jerusalem dating from the 7th or 6th century BC. You can read this as a little note probably in your NRSV version of the Bible in the Numbers, in the book of Numbers. This little amulet contains part of the beautiful blessing found in Numbers chapter 6. That blessing holds forth God as the keeper of our life and well-being, God as the one who looks after us, looks with favor upon us, blesses us by lifting his countenance upon us, and gives us peace that brings wholeness to our life. And so I'd like to give a blessing, if I may, in this day. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace now and evermore. Amen. God be with you.